And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Cameron Chell, who's the co-founder and CEO of Draganfly. Ticker symbol is DPRO. Cameron, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Adam, I'm a big fan and really pleased and honored that you have me on your show. So thank you very much.
Likewise, and for the audience, this is going to be a very special interview. I'm very excited. Cam has been a pioneer in the drone industry and has done many other things as a wealth of knowledge. So let's dive right in. Cam, I always like to begin. Can you please tell us your story and how you got to where you are today?
Well, sure. Again, thanks again, Adam. I've been a tech entrepreneur since my early teens. I was a dot-com kid, if you will. Like that's kind of like, my early 20s, right when early to mid 20s, right when the dot-com was just going hard. And I had a little company, and our idea was that we were going to take servers, or PCs really, at that time and put them in a central location. And we were going to use this thing that was kind of up and coming called the internet to access software that was on our servers, and so people could use different software from their home or from wherever they were at, and not have to necessarily buy it. They could subscribe for it. And it was a stupid idea, and there was no use for it. I mean, you got to remember, this is when, like, oh, the internet's, it's kind of like the yellow pages, but it's online, and kind of thing. So we found a market in the fact that audit firms would use our data farm, we called it at the time, and so we'd load up Great Plains, which was a little fun fact. Great Plains was the first SaaS company out there. It wasn't Salesforce, and it wasn't a bunch of the others. It was Great Plains. So they did a deal with this, kind of, I think, more out of sympathy than anything else, on this stupid idea. We loaded their software on our servers, and then a couple of small regional audit firms would take out their transportable computers, which were like sewing machines at the time, and they'd go to rather than having to take them out to the office, they'd use computers that were at their clients' offices, access the Great Plains software in this small kind of mid-market area that they were in at the time, and they would do their accounting work on it, and it caught on. And so the next thing he asked for is that, well, we need some productivity software. We need to use our Lotus 123, again, dating myself there. And some of us are actually using, this Microsoft product suite as well. And Excel is pretty, was kind of up and coming at the time. So we approached Microsoft and said, well, could, explain what we were doing. It took us about a year, but they finally said, okay, we'll do a subscription licensing deal with you. So Microsoft was actually the second uh, uh, software as a service company out there, believe it or not. And that was the first time they'd ever had a subscription licensing model. So we did that, and we had two, then we had four, and then we had six, and then we had kind of eight, regional-ish, kind of semi-national accounting firms on board, and working and growing. And then Microsoft bought Hotmail, and I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time. And they were like, "Oh, what are we going to do with this thing now? What are server farms, data utility, da da da?" And I happened to be in the right room at the right city at the right time, and somebody started asking me those questions. And so I explained what we were doing, and then so somebody said, "Hey, well, can you help us do that?" And of course, I'm a sales guy, like it or not, and so I said yes. I really didn't have any clue what I was saying yes to, but yeah, we can do that. And so we became an integral part of that whole world of Hotmail, getting out there. So, we built the company up. We were doing $80 million in revenue, and we didn't know that that was a big deal or wasn't a big deal. And we got approached by a big New York bank, and they said, there's this thing called the dot-com going on, and you're a startup and you're doing 80 million in revenue, and everybody else is trying to figure out how to replace the yellow pages. So we went public, and I was 25, I think, and company went to a $3.5 billion market cap, which in 2000 is probably like 8 billion today. But and again, I still didn't realize the impact of it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't. Of course, I thought I did. And so, I did that for about another year, and we had all the right investors and all that type of stuff. So I got fired about a year later, which was the right. I should have been fired, kind of thing. and so I left there, and then I went and became one of the early, I think the first, but one of the early outside investors in a company called NetTeller, and and I got involved with the product team there. And NetTeller went on to become the largest mover of money in the online gambling space. And so we took it public over in London, and that was a big success. And long story short, I thought I knew everything about everything, and I didn't know anything about anything, but I had gained a lot of great experience. I was in New York on 9/11 at the base of the towers, and my life, I was kind of already somewhat out of control in my life, but that kind of pushed me over the edge. And over the course of about a 5-year span, I just completely blew everything up in my life, and was homeless and bankrupt and in every way imaginable. And that was a long time ago. It was 20 plus years ago, obviously now, and so I've got it, but I got things cleaned up. And for the last 20 years, I've been building companies, 20 plus. I've been building companies, and in particular Draganfly in the drone space. So that's probably a longer version of the backstory than you were probably looking for. But I believe that what we're doing at Draganfly and the 20 plus years of work that we put in here is now going to hopefully turn into another one of those fantastic stories that does a lot of good for society.
Wow, I absolutely love your story and the fact that you had all that success early on, then you kind of self-sabotaged, but you came back from it and you built it back up again. So definitely hats off to you there, Kim. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your business. Please tell us what Dragonfly does, some of your competitive advantages, anything else you want to share about the
Yeah,
company.
sounds great. So Draganfly is at least to my knowledge, it's the oldest standing dual use drone manufacturer in the world. And so we've been around for 27 years now. There's not much that we haven't done in the drone space. We've seen, probably half a dozen drone cycles where it was all going to take off and be great and amazing. And we got our start in the public safety space. So we were building drones really as hobbies, as hobbyists, and were approached by a federal police force that wanted to use it actually for accident reconstruction. And one day they got a call from a search and rescue team that said, "Hey, we can't put our helicopters up. We've got somebody that's wandered away from a car accident in minus 40-degree weather. They've been missing for many hours. Any chance you could take that drone that you got for accident reconstruction, because it had thermal cameras on it, and go look for this person?" And they did, and they found the person, and it saved their life. And so that Dragonfly, it was called the Dragonflyer 4 at the time. So the Dragonflyer 4 is the first drone that was ever credited with saving a human life. And that drone now sits on permanent display in the Smithsonian. And
Wow.
and that really became the beginning of our public safety work, and the work that we've done with law enforcement and military and humanitarian around the world. And so that's really a kind of the deeper part of our ethos. And then we definitely grew that business, and have just managed it a month at a time and a quarter at a time through the last 27 years, where in that time frame we have seen every single drone manufacturer that was started in North America, except for, say, the last 5 to 7 years, where we're in another drone cycle right now, which is different this time. But every single drone manufacturer has gone out of business, whether it was Airware, Air Lily, GoPro, Airwise, 3DR, and they all had hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars behind them. And so I think what's strategically at the root of what strategically differentiates us is that we're very boots on the ground. We were very bootstrapped. We were very customer focused. We've only had 2 people that have left the company. One, I think, one was retirement, and one was maternity leave. So those same engineers that we had, 25 plus years ago, are the same engineers and we've got many more, but that we work with today. So for a company that's still relatively small, our ability to service and execute on concepts of operation and capacity wise meet the large orders that are now coming through this drone cycle I think are maybe second to none, but can certainly match anybody that's raised hundreds of millions of dollars out there.
Wow, what a great story. So you were early in the drone space as a co-founder. I want to go back there for a second because I get what you do and I love what you do, and the fact that you're around for decades It's almost like Elton John's song, "I'm Still Standing." Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's exactly
Stars
it.
and
Yeah. Oh
Pieces,
man.
yes, yeah.
Oh,
That's what comes to mind as you're speaking.
yeah.
So I love that. Congratulations, by the way. It's an absolutely fantastic feat. So let's talk about the when you co-founded the company. What was the vision? What was the problem solution? Like, speak to that a little bit, please. Because
Yeah.
you were
So
obviously ahead of
what?
your times. I'm curious as
Yeah,
what you
so
saw.
the company was actually in existence, and the founder, his first name was Dragan, Dragan, and that's why our name Draganfly is spelled with an A instead of an O. And he had the business really as a hobbyist for about 5 years. Separately, I was designing some software to use for body cameras in the police space. And so they would turn on and off, automatically transmit, stream, and some things like that. And I got introduced to Draganfly because they were doing this public safety work. And as I got to know Dragon and the whole company, it became really apparent to me that this was going to be the future. Now, of course, at that time, I thought that, oh, and just within a few years, this is going to be amazing. And here we are 20 some years later. I like, oh my, if I had any idea, but so I was right. I was just 20 years late in my thinking. But so I put a little investment group together and combined our two companies together. And so that's why I have the privilege, and I say it with ultimate, due respect, that I get to call myself a co-founder of the business. And so that's how I got involved in the business. And the vision at that time was really to drive the drone industry to what we see happening in the drone industry today. So all the different like drones will be as pervasive as iPhones. Drones will be as pervasive as the internet, and the impact of drones will actually be as big as AI. And the reason, and all of those things do culminate into the drone industry. And the reason I say that is that nothing collects data better than a drone. Nothing. Because what you've got is you've got something that's got an aerial perspective in a 3D space with a massive battery pack on it that you can put multiple sensors. So every time you're flying a drone, you can be doing ground penetrating radar, you can be doing LiDAR, you can do air quality, you can do like absolutely anything. And you combine all those data sets in with now what's happening with the AI, and you can actually compute on board now we have NVIDIA chip integration, and you get real-time AI interpretation of literally hundreds of data sets all at once. The insights are absolutely incredible. And the implications, both commercially and military wise, are beyond like just mind blowing when you start to see these results. But that was actually, oh, that's what's going to happen. But again, 20 plus years ago, that's not what was happening. But that's where we started knowing that we are a drone company, but ultimately we're a data company. And that's where that and so our vision eventually is to give away our drones. Like the only way that we're going to compete with Chinese inexpensive, very high quality manufacturing in North America isn't by tariffs, it isn't by protectionism, it isn't by those are all great things right now. I'm not taking away from them. We have a market right now that's exploding because of that. So I'm grateful for that. But ultimately, we have to compete on a better playing field than that, and we are better than that. And so we're going to have to give away these drones at some point, but how we do that is by having better data. A drone does two things. It either delivers something, it might be a package, it might be an ordinance, or it collects data, or it does both at the same time. And the people that can do that best and collect that data to provide better benefit back to their customers, whether they're government, military, commercial, law enforcement, whatever, that's the company that's ultimately going to be a trillion-dollar company, candidly, in my mind.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So thank you for that overview and the explanation and letting us know your story and the company's story. So now I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to timeless advice. So the first question would be risk management. How do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management?
Yeah, I have found that the best way to manage risk, at least in our circumstance, and certainly over the number of years, is to worry a little bit less about the future. You got to be cognizant of it. You got to have strategy, and you have to be totally aware. But we don't react to the future. We react to what's happening right now. So we are very one step at a time. What's in front of us right now? If we can execute the next step, we're likely, 50% ahead of everybody else either in the market or the problem that we're trying to deal with at that moment. And then if we just execute the next step, we're another 50% ahead again. And what it does is it keeps us surviving, but it also gets us better intel and better information, which then creates a more clear picture for what we're worrying about out here. I find a lot of risk analysis and a lot of strategy turns out to be a lot of worry. And if you're planning for what you're worrying about, you're going to end up in that exact situation. Now, I'm not talking about being ignorant or putting head in the sand or anything like that, but I am talking about where the proportional amount of focus absolutely needs to be. And if you're in a firefight or if you're in a serious situation, emergency rescue, and this is, our customers have taught me this. If you're in those situations, you have to deal with that situation. Not necessarily like, how do we prevent this in the future from ever? Yeah, you'll get there, but right now you got to deal with that situation and save that life or your life or accomplish the mission. And so we treat our risk management in kind of in that same light. We just make sure that we execute on the exact next thing.
I love that. That's really, really, really powerful because worrying, they say, is like praying for what you don't want. So if you spend your whole time worrying about that stuff and then, like you said, not planning and not executing, you're going to just sit there and focus on that and then just go there. And that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about timeless lessons. What are some timeless lessons you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience? You can go business, life, anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, I think probably the biggest business lesson that I've had, which is actually a life lesson as well, is to realize that it's not all about me, and that everything that we do needs to be in service to whoever we're servicing. So whether that's our customer, whether that's our shareholder, whether it's the corporation, whatever it is, if our motivation, and this is a very hard discipline, it's to adopt, and it takes a lot of practice. And is if our decision and discipline is around what's best for us, and it's not what's best for the people that we're in service to, it's going to be the wrong decision. It's very tempting to say, oh, it's best for us right now. We have to make this decision. It's whatever. And that's where the discipline part comes in, where you've got to play it for the long term. So there are many times, all those companies earlier that I mentioned that had gone out of business that had hundreds of millions of dollars, every one of those companies I mentioned tried to buy Draganfly at one time, and a couple of them a couple times. And there were a number of times in there where I was adamant and excited that we were going to sell to them. I mean, Airware, John Chambers, the chairman of Cisco, was the chairman of Airware. I mean, I would have loved to, what an honor to have been able to work with him or for him. But some wiser people reminded me of that we are not here. Like, they ultimately, in our opinion, had a strategy that probably wasn't going to work. We never know for sure. And we happened to be right. It didn't work for them. But that wouldn't have been good for the customers that we dealt with. We have mission critical customers that depend on our product, that depend on us being there every single day. And that became more important to us than, selling out to the big person next door. And again, if that would have been the right decision, and I would have made the wrong decision at that time. But there's some great people around us that reminded us of our mission. And in fact, it wasn't board members; it was employees. It was people on the ground that cared about the customers that we were dealing with. That ultimately they were like, "Yeah, we're not going to probably hang around anyway if you sell to these folks or whatever, because that's just not our ethos." And so, making sure that we stay in service, which is not a popular or easy thing to do, and it's hard to quantify. And you have to constantly question yourself, like every day, is this action that I'm taking right now being of service?
Yeah, that's a really, really just brilliant way of structuring your whole life. Like you said, not just business, but also personal. Let's talk about the other side of that coin, which is timeless mistakes. What are some timeless mistakes either you've made, you've seen other people make, and then how do you learn from them so you don't repeat them?
Yeah, well, again, I think everybody probably has some timeless mistakes or lessons, through the journey that I've been privileged to go through, I've made a lot. So, but Out of all of that, I think the timeless lesson I've got is that everything is connected. Every one of us is connected, and everything that I do and everything that we do as a company has an impact that ripples across our customer base, the families of our employees, absolutely everything. So, while we have to make decisions that are based on the immediate, imperative that has to get accomplished, we have to be so mindful that every one of those decisions has a ripple effect, and whether it might feel like it's the right decision at the time and get us short-term gain, it will bite us in the ass if it's not the right decision. So we've always been the small, not we're often more times than not the small guys on the street that don't have as much capability, that don't have as much capital, that don't have as much. And we're seeing it again. There's lots of big voices out there. There's lots of big capital out there. There's lots of, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And we, we're gonna stay our course. We're gonna listen to people out there that have that same ethos. And I do believe that at the end of the day, that will result for our shareholders in us, certainly being in a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Okay, let's talk about leadership. So, what makes a great leader, and what are some lessons you've learned along the way about leadership that you'd like to share with the audience?
Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Everybody has leadership capability. And so I think for a long time, most of my life, I have personally thought, I need to be the leader. I need to be front and center. I need to, if I'm not doing it all, then, I'm not worth being here. Like I'm going to get replaced or I'm going to get whatever. And when I finally got old enough to garner from the lessons that I've had the privilege to get pounded into my head over and over the decades, is that the more I let go with great people around us, the more I let go and I let them lead, the better the solutions are, like it just works like that. And at the end of the day, my decision is do I want this to work or do I want to try to look good? Like I hate to say it, that's just my pure vanity coming out but and I want it to work. I just want it to work. So if I keep that in mind as a leader, like what's going to make this work, that the next right decision seems to just present itself, and I can't argue with that decision. The second I start justifying something, I know I'm bullshitting myself. So just get out of the way is do my part, but get out of the way.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. So let's talk about these life lessons. In order to becoming successful people have to learn how to overcome adversity and handle adversity. I noticed something you just mentioned right there, which I just had a conversation with my father about earlier, of going through difficult things. I said, I'm grateful for those lessons, or that adversity, because that made me who I am today. I learned from them, so on and so forth. And you just mentioned that as well, as literally today I had that conversation this morning. So how do you handle adversity, and what are some obstacles you had to overcome along the way that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I'm going to say this, and I want to make sure it doesn't come off trite, because it isn't, and it's taken 57 years for me to get to the spot where I actually truly feel and believe this. But I'm a bit of a fitness guy. I love fitness and everything else, and so the analogy is, I absolutely cannot get stronger, be more capable, live longer, be a better dad, because I have young kids and as an old guy, unless I have good physical fitness, and good physical fitness is hard and it's painful. And if I don't go through that pain, I'm not going to be good at what I do. So and I really like, there is not a, probably not, well, I'm sure this isn't true, but I would like to think that there's probably not a moment of frustration that I now feel that I don't recognize it as, this is part of my opportunity. This is why I'm going to be better tomorrow. It's because I'm not treating this piece of frustration that I'm dealing with or whatever it is as like, this is my workout, and I got to be grateful for this in the moment, not after the fact when it worked out or wasn't going to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. And worry is so much worse than reality. But like in that moment where I'm getting yelled at because somebody thinks I'm an idiot because I did something wrong, or whatever, like, okay, no, like this is me doing another push-up, or this is me, being able to be a better husband or be able to be a better father or better business person in this situation, because I've got to treat this opinion that I'm getting or whatever with respect and deal with it. Like own my own side of the street and just like be grateful for that adversity. I mean, that's the only there have been only a few, but a few moments in my life where I'm like, I don't have any problems at this moment. I got to tell you, if those would have lasted more than 10 minutes, I'm sure I'd be depressed. So
Yeah, a blink of an
yeah, be
eye.
grateful for that for the shit that we go through.
Seriously. Okay, I love that. And being conscious enough and aware enough to do it in real time, I think is a superpower. So hats off to you again. That's it's
Wow.
fantastic. All right, Cam, final question for you. What is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
Uh, well, I don't think I'm qualified to give anybody advice, but if I were to look back at me when I was 30, now, uh, it would be shut the fuck up and listen. Like who do you think you are? Like, yeah, you're like everybody is scared. Everybody is like trying to make it work. Like the world doesn't revolve around anything. It revolves around everything. So, like enjoy that. Like accept that as the fact. Yeah, and the reality is there are people in the world that a big part of the world do revolve around. I mean, they're massive personalities. And I always thought that that's what I wanted to be. And I have so much more peace not being that person, right? Like being a part of rather than being it. So I would probably say to him, learn to enjoy being a part of. It's the greatest privilege is belonging.
It really is. Cam, absolutely fantastic. 10 stars out of 5. Thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me today. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon. Congrats on all your success.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.